Hi everyone, I Rakshita. Now I'll be presenting on the topic principle or requirement of a good control system. Let's see the meaning of control and controlling. Control. Control is a function of management which helps to check errors in order to take corrective action. This is done to minimize deviation from standard and ensure that the stated goals of the organization are achieved in a desired manner. In the organization, control is used to check errors which has occurred in the different areas of organization and helps to take corrective measures to rectify those errors. When the people of the organization or employees of the organization are working for a company, at all point of time, it is very important for an organization to ensure that the work is being done as it was planned. The main task in controlling is to identify that whether we are conforming to the standards or not. If not, then what are the corrective measures which are to be taken? Controlling. Controlling is a process of monitoring, comparing, correcting performance, and taking action to ensure desired result. It is a process of comparing the actual performance with the standard performance, and if there are any deviation, taking the corrective action. Effective control system. Control system is a system which gathers and uses information to evaluate the performance. Means it collects the information to evaluate the performance of the various organization. Now let's see the 14 principles or requirement of a good control system. First one, effective control system. An ideal system of control is that which makes the controlling function easy, effective and smooth. The management of any organization must develop a control system tailored to its organization goals and resources. For having an effective control system, certain prerequisites are enumerated below. Emphasis on objectives. Before planning a control system, it is discussed to know clearly the objectives of the organization. Then, control system must be directed towards the potential or actual deviations from plans early enough to permit effective corrective action. Before planning the control system, we should clearly know the objectives of the company. Without knowing the objectives properly, it is not possible for a company to make an effective plan for the control system. The control system must be directed towards the deviations from the plans. Means if there is any deviations to achieve objectives, for that corrective actions must be taken. Efficiency of control techniques. Control techniques and approaches are efficient when they detect deviations from plans and make possible corrective action with the minimum of unsought consequences. The control techniques and control system are efficient only when the deviations from the plans or standards and corrective actions are taken for that deviations with the minimum unsought consequences. Responsibility for control. The main responsibility for the exercise for control should rest in the managers charged with the implementation of plan. In the organization, the activities are controlled by the manager or person who is working at the top level. So, his responsibility of exercise of control is start with the very first stage of planning. Suitability. Controls should be tailored to fit the need of the organization. The flow of information concerning current performance should correspond with the organization structure employed. The control system should design appropriate to the needs, kind of activity and circumstances of an enterprise. The flow of information should correspond with the organization structure employed. If a superior is able to control overall activities of the organization, then he must find a pattern to control for individual parts. Flexibility. The control system itself must be flexible enough to accommodate changes. In other words, the control should remain workable in the face of changed plans, unforeseen circumstances. We know that how changes are happens in the business world. So the control system must be adjusted with the change of plans or continuously changing the pattern of business condition. So the control system should be workable in the face of changed plans and unforeseen circumstances. Self controls. Units may be planned to control themselves. If a department can have its own goals and control system, much of the detailed controls can be handled within the department. These subsystems of self control can then be tied together by the overall control system. Control by exception. This is also known as management by exception. According to this principle, only significant deviations from standard, whether positive or negative, requires management attention. As they constitute exception, an attempt to control everything may prove to be a futile exercise. This principle is also known as management by exception. According to this principle, the management give importance only to significant deviations, whether positive or negative, from standard performance, because it is not possible for a manager to check each and every deviations, because if he check all deviation, it may increases the unnecessary work in the organization and decreases the attention on important problem. So, control system should be designed such a manner that only significant deviations from standard performance are reported to the higher level manager. Focused on strategic point control. It is not sufficient to look at exception. The control system should be focused on those areas where deviations from the standards are most likely to take place or where deviations would lead to the greatest harm. In the organization, some deviations from standard have little impact and some other have greater impact. The principles of control by exception, what it says is management should give attention on greater deviation instead of little deviation. But this principle says that the little deviations from the various department may lead to greater impact on the organization. So it should give attention on small or deviations from standards and taking the corrective actions to rectify those deviations. Corrective action. Merely pointing of deviation is not sufficient in a good control system. It must lead to corrective action to be taken to check deviations from standard through appropriate planning, organizing and directing. Pointing out of deviation is not sufficient in a control system. So, after finding of deviation, the corrective measures for that deviations must be taken with the help of proper planning, organizing and directing. Forward-looking control. Control system should be directed towards future. It should report all the deviations from the standard quickly in order to safeguard the future. If the control reports are not directed at future, they are of no use as they will not be able to suggest the types of measures to be taken to rectify the past deviations. Economical. The system of control must be worth their cost. They must justify the expenses involved. A control system is justifiable if the saving anticipated from it exceeds the expected cost in its working. The implementation of control system must be economical and it involves less cost and it does not exceed from savings. Human factor. A good system of control should find the person accountable for result. Whenever large deviations take place, they must be guided and directed if necessary. Thus, human factor must be given proper attention while controlling. Objective standard. As far as possible, standards should be objective. If they are subjective, a manager or a subordinate personally may influence the judgment of performance. Effective control requires objective, accurate, and suitable standards. Conclusion. From the analysis of the requirement of a good control system, it is quite obvious that planning is the basis of control, action its essence, delegation its key, and information its guide. An effective control system is important for an organization to run properly and achieve its goal. Any good control system will follow these 14 principles. Thank you.